Chapter 8 of Edmund Dulac's fairy tale book. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joy Baker. Edmund Dulac's fairy tale book by Edmund Dulac. Chapter 8 The Queen of the Many-Colored Bedchamber. An Irish Fairy Tale. One day in the long ago, the sun shone down upon a green wood whose mightiest trees have since rotted at the bottom of the ocean, where the best masts find a grave. While the sunlight slept on the bosom of the foliage, a horseman galloped in the shade beneath. The great chief Fionn, son of Cúil, was looking for his knights whom he had outstripped in a hunt. He reined in his steed in a broad glade and blew his bugle loud and clear. Beside the echoes repeated among the hillside, there was no answering call. He rode on, pausing now and again to blow another and another bugle blast, but always with the same result. At length the wood grew more scattered, and presently he came out upon a stretched plain where the grass was so green that it looked like emerald, and beyond it, in the distance, at the end of the sloping plain, he could see the seashore and the ocean rising like a wall of sapphire up to the farthest horizon. Down by the shore he could see figures moving, and, thinking that his knights had found their way thither, he rode like the wind down the long, gentle slope towards them. As he drew nearer and nearer, he saw that there were 12 of them, and they were playing at ball. By the mighty strokes they gave with the coman, he guessed that these were the 12 sons of Bar Sculloge, for none but them could drive the ball so high and far. Tremendous were their strokes, and when they ran after the ball, they outstripped the wind. As Fionn drew rein and dismounted, they stopped their play, and, drawing near, welcomed him loudly as the helper of the weak and the protector of the green island against the white-faced stranger. When he had returned their greeting, they invited him to join in their game, if such an amusement was agreeable to him. "Fionn, son of Cúil," said one, "here, take my coman and wipe away the vanity and conceit of all comers, for we are practising for a great contest." Fionn took the coman and looked at it, holding it up between his finger and thumb. "I doubt if I could do much good with this plaything," said Fionn. "It would break at the first blow if I were to strike at all hard." "Never let that stand in the way," returned the other. "Wait." He then searched upon the ground among the blades of grass, and at length found a nettle, which he pulled up by the roots. Having breathed a charm over it, he passed it 3 times from one hand to the other, and lo! it was changed into a mighty coman, fit for the hand of Fionn, son of Cúil. Then they were amazed at his terrific blows. The ball, struck by Fionn, soared almost out of sight in the sky, and fell to earth far off. But each time the fleet-footed sons of Bar Sculloge retrieved it. At last Fionn bared his arm to the shoulder, and, with a final blow, sent the ball out of sight. None saw it go, none saw it fall. They all stood and looked at each other. "My hand on it," said the eldest son of Bar, advancing to Fionn. "I live to admit I never saw the game played till today." As they were speaking, a voice hailed them, and, turning seawards, they saw a small boat approaching. As soon as it touched the beach, a man sprang ashore and hastened towards them. "Hail, Fionn, son of Cúil," he cried. "You are known to me, though not I to you. My lady, the Queen of Sianabreca, lays a knight's task upon you. Hasten forthwith and have speech with her on her island. The hand of Flatir the witch is upon her, and her chiefs have advised her to summon you to her aid." "I know it," replied Fionn. "The salmon of wisdom which comes up from the sea breeds knowledge in my brain. I know what is passing in all the islands, but I fear that my efforts against witchcraft would be unavailing. Nevertheless, I will try. I will choose from the 12 sons of Bar Sculloge 3 that I need, and together we will follow you to the island." "But, noble chief," "You have no boat here, and mine will hold only one other beside myself." "Let not that trouble you," replied Fionn. "I will provide a boat for us four, and we will follow you." With this he selected from the 12 sons the 3 that he needed. They were Schloss, Grunne, and Beschunach. Then he plucked 2 twigs of a witch hazel that grew nearby, and they all proceeded to the beach. There he held the 2 twigs out over the water, and in a moment the one became a boat, and the other a mast with sails set. He sprang in, and the 3 followed, and presently they were speeding over the sea, setting their course by that of the stranger in his boat. They sailed for many hours before they came to the island of the Queen of the Many-Colored Bedchamber. There they passed between high rocks and entered a quiet harbor, where they moored their boat to a stout pillar and set a seal upon the fastening, forbidding any but themselves to loose it for the space of 1 year, for they knew not how long their quest would last. Then they went up into the palace of the Queen. They were gladly welcomed and treated with the most generous hospitality. When they had eaten and drank, the Queen led them into a vast bedchamber decorated in the form and manner of the rainbow. Over the ceiling were the 7 colors in their natural order. Round the walls they ranged themselves in the same fashion, and even the carpet itself was formed of 7 hues to correspond. If the rainbow itself had been caught and tied up in a room, the effect could not have been more remarkable. It was indeed a many-colored bedchamber. Taking Fionn by the hand, the Queen led them all into a corner of the bedchamber, where she pointed to a little cot in which a child lay sleeping. "I had 3 children," she said as she stood at the head of the cot while Fionn and the others gathered round. "When the eldest was a year old, it was carried off by that wicked witch Flat-ear. The next year, when the second one was 12 months old, it suffered the same fate. And now my youngest here, who is 12 months old today, has fallen sick, and I fear to lose him in the same manner. This very night the witch will surely come and snatch my child away unless you can prevent her." "Take comfort, fair Queen," said Fionn. "We will do our best. If you will leave this chamber to us, we will watch over your child and see that it comes to no harm. And if it be possible to capture the witch, depend upon it we shall do so. Too long has she worked her wickedness upon these lands." The Queen thanked him and withdrew. Soon the sun was set, and, as the child slept on, the shadows gathered. Fionn and the 3 brothers set their watch in the many-colored bedchamber. Presently servants came in and set the wine before them, honeymead and Danish beer and metheglin and sweet cakes. And when they regaled themselves, the servants brought chessmen and a board, and Grunne and Beschunach played chess while Fionn and Schluss watched by the bedside. Hours passed while the 2 chess players were absorbed in their game, and the other 2 kept watch and ward. Then, towards midnight, while Fionn was alert and wakeful, he saw Schloss sink his chin on his breast, overcome by an unnatural sleep. Thrice Schloss strove to rouse himself, but thrice he sank into a deeper sleep. "Wake up, Schloss!" cried Grunne as Beschunach was considering his next move. "Wake up, aye! We have a pledge to keep." Schloss roused himself. Yes, he said. "We have a pledge to keep." And then his chin sank gradually on his breast again, and he was once more a victim to the same unnatural sleep. "Let him alone," said Fionn. "I will watch." And the 2 brothers went on with their game of chess. Suddenly a chill wind swept through the bedchamber. The fire in the grate flickered and the candles burned low. The child in the cot stirred and moaned. "See that, aye?" said Fionn in a hoarse whisper, pointing to the fireplace. They turned and looked. It was a long, lean, bony hand reaching down the chimney and groping in the direction of the cot. The fingers were spread out and crooked, all ready to clutch. Slowly the long arm lengthened and drew near the cot. It was about to snatch the child when Fionn darted forward and seized it in an iron grip. There was a violent struggle, for Fionn had the arm of the witch in his powerful grasp. He held on so masterfully that the witch, in her frantic efforts to draw it away, fell down the chimney and rolled across the fire, struck Fionn a terrific blow on the temple with her other hand, and then, falling on top of his unconscious body, lay still, her shoulder torn and bleeding. Grunne and Bashunach quickly ran to Fionn's aid, and, leaving the witch for dead, quickly withdrew his body and restored him to consciousness. Then, when they turned to see the witch, they found that both she and the child had vanished. They sprang to their feet and roused Schloss roughly, but he sank into sleep again immediately. "What shall we do?" they all asked of Fionn. "Follow," said he. "Follow where I lead. Grunne, pick up your bow and arrows. Bashunach, knot your ladder of cords. Follow me, both of you. Leave Schloss sleeping. He is not in his body. His spirit goes with us, and we cannot do without it." So Grunne gathered up his bow and arrows, and Bashunach his rope, and the three, leaving the body of Schloss like dead wood, went forth to seek the witch. They came to the seashore, loosed their boat, sped across the harbor and out of sight between the high rocks. Then, guided by the loose spirit of the sleeping Schloss, they sped forward on the ocean, driven by a freshening breeze. All the while the spirit light, floating above the waves, led them on. It was some 2 hours before dawn when they descried in the distance the lighted tower of the witch upon an island. A dull red flame shot out from it, and, as it turned forever on itself, this flame lighted the sea around it like a revolving wheel, clear and red against the surrounding blackness. Nearer and nearer they approached it. Then Fionn stood up in the boat and chanted magic spells, raising his arms and sinking them again with fingers stretched and his palms downward. Then, with a loud cry, he called for sleep to descend on the vile witch of the revolving tower. Ere yet his cry had died away in the surrounding sea, the red light ceased to revolve. It was still glaring dully. Then, as the boat touched the beach beneath the tower, Fionn commanded Bashunach to throw his knotted cord and noose the topmost turret. It was soon done. The noose caught and held, and in another moment Bashunach, like a wild cat of the mountain, was climbing up, and Fionn and Grunne followed, while the spirit of Schloss, who lay fast asleep in the many-colored bedchamber, guided and directed their every movement. They gained a window of the tower and made their way in. Following the gleam of the dull red light, they went from room to room, and at last came to one where it shone clearly through the cracks of the door. They burst in and stood aghast on the threshold at the sight that met their gaze. There, on the floor, lay the witch in a magic sleep, the blood flowing from her shoulder, torn by Fionn in the struggle. And there, around her, crying bitterly, were the queen's 3 children. Fionn stooped down and swept his arm round them and took them aside and comforted them. Then he gathered the youngest to his breast, and, directing Grunne and Bashunach to see to the other 2, he led the way to the window. In a very short time they had all climbed down the rope ladder and were speeding away in the boat. But as they left the island, the spell was released. The tower with its wheel of red light began again to revolve upon the waters, and they heard the witch's shriek of rage as she awoke to the pain of her wound to find the children gone. It came again and again, that shriek of baffled hate and rage and pain. Then, as they looked back, they saw a dark form glide down the walls of the tower like a loathsome thing, creeping head downwards. It reached the foot and sped to the seashore. Then it seemed to loose a boat, and, in another moment, it was speeding in pursuit of them. Faster and faster over the waves it came. "Quick!" cried Fionn to Grunne. "Draw your bowstring to your ear. You will not miss. The spirit of the sleeper will guide your shaft." Gruna fitted an arrow to his bowstring and drew it to his ear. Then, as Fionn shot forward his outstretched hands, casting a vivid light from his fingertips over the surface of the sea, the arrow sped with a twang and a whiz. A terrible cry came back across the water. The witch, struck to the heart, threw up her arms and, falling from her boat, sank in the sea. Fionn put down his hands, and then all was dark, save for a dull red light which flickered and played on the spot where the witch had sunk, and they sped on. Now they neared the harbor and saw a multitude of people waiting, with torches waving. When they gained the foothold of the land, with the 3 children in their arms, the people raised a mighty cheer. The queen heard it and hastened to meet them. Great was her joy on receiving her 3 children at the hands of Fionn. She showered upon him every blessing, entertaining him and his comrades, the 3 sons of Boar Sculloch, for a whole year. And every year thereafter, lest the deed be forgotten, on the anniversary of the day she sent a boat laden with gold and silver and precious stones and shields and helmets and chess tables and rich cloaks to the sons of Boar Sculloch, inviting Fionn to join them in a high festival on that day, for they said such deeds should never be forgotten. And one morning in spring, Fionn, son of Cúil, went into the gardens and orchards about his palace, and plucked many twigs from flowers and fruit trees, and with these he went down to the seashore. Holding them above the waters, he recited a spell, and immediately a boat was formed of the twigs, a trim little craft with sail set. He sprang in and steered his course for the Isle of the Queen of the many-colored bedchamber, and, as he sped over the waves, the boat began to bud, and green leaves appeared on the mast, and the spars and stays put out the growth of spring till they shone like emerald in the sun. When he came in sight of the island, the sides of the boat were covered with blossoms. The mast had put out a wealth of petals, and the sail and rigging were covered with flowering vines. Then, as he passed between the high rocks and entered the harbor, the watchers on shore saw a boat approaching, splendid with summer flowers, and on its mast were spreading branches dropping down with luscious fruit. Nearer and nearer it came, and, when it touched the shore, Fionn sprang out and bade them gather the beautiful flowers and the ripe fruit and take them to their queen. And Queen Breca valued this present more than any other he could have offered, because the manner of it was beautiful, and a queen is a woman, and a woman loves beautiful things above all else. And Schloss, the sleeper, what reward had he? He claimed none, and none knows what was his reward. Yet it is said that in the land of deep sleep there are rewards undreamt of by those who wake. End of chapter 8.